Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the next episode of Seek Podcast. And I think it's been quite a while. We have had a episode, but again, better late than never. So today we have with us Nilofer, one of our psychologists, who's going to help us understand how setting up boundaries can actually help our mental health. With that saying, I request Nilofer to please introduce herself to our audience first. So, Nilofer, would you please start introducing yourself to our audience?
Yes, thank you. My name is Nilofer Zafar. I am a psychologist. I'm also a teacher. I teach psychology as well. So, I've been practicing since the year 2019. And also then 2020 happened. I've had like an online and offline kind of a space. But that is what I've done. I've really worked with like a lot of people dealing with a lot of concerns, and one of the topics that we're going to talk about today is also something very close to me as well. So I'm really excited and just looking forward to our conversation today.
Right. So, Nilofer, before starting onto the topic, let's talk about you. So, when did you actually decide to be a psychologist? I mean, how exactly did it start?
Yes. It started in when I was in 11th grade, and we just had psychology as a subject back then, and there wasn't really a lot of understanding of what psychology is and what is mental health, and the topic really interested me, and it was about humans and how our thinking actually affects our behavior, and that was super fascinating to me. And then I kept taking the subject psychology as I went ahead. And then TYBA is when that I want to really do something more, because I realized while I was also younger, I was always a listener. But I felt like, okay, I'm just listening and not really doing anything. I don't know what to do with that. So I think then I did my master's in psychology, and I've specialized in clinical. So I think the motive for me was to really help people, because mental health now, of course, we know is such a huge part of our life. But I think it just started off with an interest to, understand people. So that's how it started.
Right. So you had started studying psychology or counseling in the year 2019? Or did you start studying in the 2019, or did you start counseling?
So I completed my master's in 2019, and then I became a psychologist specializing in clinical. So that was 2019. So the start of actually being a psychologist.
Okay. So how's the experience so far?
So it's actually been pretty good, but also it's been a journey. So like I was telling, 2019, of course, was, everything was pre-pandemic, and it was a very different experience to have people in person, and that kind of conversation and communication is very, very different from when you actually move to an online platform. And we didn't have a choice back then. Like now, of course, there are choices. So it's been a good journey. I feel like there's also a lot of reflection. I have understood myself also. So I feel like whenever I interact with people and clients, it actually teaches me also so much. So I would sum it up by saying that it's been a good journey so far.
Right. So talking about the topic that we have come up with today to discuss, why, I mean, is this something that you wanted to talk through this, or why exactly did you choose these topics? Because there are numerous topics, but why exactly this? Why would you want to talk about this topic?
Right. So there are actually two major reasons for this. One, I see that I also struggle with this. So it's a lot of research that I did to actually also understand how I can put this particular thing in practice. And also, as I'm working with clients, I see people also struggling with this. So I feel like the particular topic that we're talking about is so important for us, because it really defines how we're going to be living our lives and how our mental space is going to be. So I think these are the two major reasons why I really want to talk about this.
Right. And of course, I'm sure you're finding this like a conversation. Is it like I'm asking you questions? Is it all good till now?
Yes, it's superb.
All right. Okay, okay, let's talk about the topic then. Now, Nilofer, we'll just talk about. By the way, you have a very nice name. What does it mean? Does it have any meaning, Nilofer?
Thank you, firstly. And yes, it does. It does have. So it's actually it's a literal translation to a water lily. So it comes from this word called nymphia, and that is translated. So it's a water lily, basically.
Okay, okay, right. All right. Well, that said, now we know what Nilofer stands for. So we'll just dive into the topic then. Nilofer, I want to understand what exactly do you mean by setting boundaries, because most of our listeners, they wouldn't actually know the term. So what exactly would you mean when you say there is a healthy boundary, or let's say have to set certain healthy boundaries? So what exactly do you mean by these boundaries?
Right. So, like, we know the term boundaries. It's just setting something. Now, what is that, right? There are
Right.
two kinds. One is any sort of emotional boundary you're setting, and one is a physical boundary. We feel like we are setting boundaries and, like we are doing good, but we actually realize that we're not when somebody actually violates it. So, like, say, for example, my boundary is that I don't want to go out post a particular time, and I'm not able to say a no. Now that is a boundary, right? It's a boundary for me to just say that, hey, I cannot come. But we don't do that. And what happens is, when we don't really set boundaries in the long run, it will affect us. It affects our mental health. So boundary setting is just basically keeping our needs in mind, and making sure that we also communicate that and also respect people's boundaries. So it's a give and take. So physical and emotional boundaries are basically what I am going to talk more about when it comes to boundary setting.
Right. So how can someone actually determine these boundaries, or how can someone actually determine these boundaries? They let it be personal or professional, and how exactly they can communicate, because most of the times, as you have mentioned, even in the example, we know that sometimes we don't want to do certain things, or we would want to say no, but I'm sure you understand that there are lots of people who have problem with setting those boundaries. So how exactly someone can effectively communicate these boundaries and draw their own boundaries?
Yes, absolutely. It is very difficult. Like you very rightly said, all of us know that, okay, these are the things we need to do, but how do we actually put it in practice? I think step number one is for us to understand what is our needs. What are our needs, emotions? How are we as people? So if I'm somebody who does not like partying with a lot of people, that is something that is personal to me. So now my boundary will be in terms with what I feel. So my morals, my values, the things I believe in, my emotions, my needs. So now my boundary, the way I communicate it, is just in line with what I feel. So like if I'm like somebody who doesn't want to go out late and doesn't want to party, I just simply communicate that in words that, hey, I am somebody who, does not like going out and I don't want to really hang out. But thank you, for asking me. But I don't think I'll be able to come. That's it. Right? We realize that it's just whatever we feel, just translating that into words. That's just as simple as, boundary setting is. So yeah, that's literally how you can set boundaries, but on the basis of your needs and what you truly believe in.
Right. And Nilofer, of course, what you said is correct, but at the same time, when you actually put yourself, I mean, you put those boundaries around you, we might not know, not many people know, but there's lots of effect that goes on when you're setting your boundary. There's lot to do. It's very directly proportionate to your mental health as well. When you're actually putting your boundaries, there's lots of improvement going on, and when there is resistance or pushback, let's say, it again takes a toll on your mental health as well. So how can one actually deal with these kind of pushback? So let's say you have your boundaries, but I'm constantly trying to resist that, or I'm trying to push you back, or push back those boundaries. So how exactly one can actually make sure that dealing with this kind of resistance from someone else, it might be a loved one, or it might be a professional life as well. So how exactly someone can deal with this?
Yes, I feel like this really starts with you having a mental space. So like For example, it's a professional space where somebody is, like trying to say, email you post 10 o'clock, and your boundary is that I'm not going to look at any work related thing post 10. Suppose that is my boundary. Now, very rightly, people are not going to always be okay with this, and they will still send you things, say post 10. Now, what do you do? Right? Either you completely block that page, so like you switch off your notifications, or you communicate and say that, hey, this is what I would really respect, that you don't really violate, and you just directly communicate what you want to say. So that is one, right? Also, it's very important for us to understand that we are always going to have a reaction from somebody, and it's very important to show self-compassion. So this is something that I think most of us lack. The minute there is resistance, we take it as, okay, I don't think I should have done that. Like, it's okay, so just be self-compassionate and tell yourself that, hey, this is my boundary, and no matter what, I will firstly communicate, and I will not let anybody violate it. So actually keeping, things in mind, like, you can actually switch off notifications, or if it comes to family members also, clearly communicate what your boundaries are. And you have to be okay with not everybody respecting your boundaries. And for that, you have to be self-compassionate. So I think if these two things are something we practice, I think we're in a good position to at least start off with boundary setting.
Right. Yeah, and since you have mentioned professional life as well as families, you have mentioned that. But let's talk about relationships. I often, you must be all aware. We all often see people breaking up, or they just might stop that relationship or end the relationship, and there might be various reasons. One of the reasons is when they say that I don't get my personal space or something. It's too much or something like that. So do you think this personal space, which they mean, is equal to this boundary setting, and if it is, how exactly can a relationship be healthier when there's proper boundary set?
Yes, I think that is such a valid thing that you've asked me, because a lot of people deal with something like this. I think the most important thing is emotional consent. So emotional consent is basically you don't dump things on the other person, which I think a lot of times happens in relationships, because you feel like, okay, this is my person, I can share my feelings, and I can. So you're violating the other person's boundaries, or the other person also things that I can, say any emotional, where a lot of concerns then start, and that personal space starts coming up, because you feel like, okay, this person is constantly, dumping with me with a lot of emotional content, and I'm ready for that. So I feel like, again, this is not the sole reason for a breakup, but a lot of times healthy boundaries are not set. I think the first thing that's most important is to communicate what your boundaries are. Like, okay, I'm somebody that requires me time. That's your boundary. Before you actually dive into the relationship, because that's where misunderstandings happen. So I feel like you are actually with somebody, communicate what is it that you want from them, or what is it that they want from you. This is boundary setting. Emotional consent. So you basically see whether is this person okay to listen to what you have to say. That's also a boundary. So somebody's really tired, say your partner's super tired, and you're like, hey, this happened to me, and this is my day, and you're, without really asking them that, hey, are you in that space to really listen to me? These small things will really add up. So I feel like communicating your needs is basic, and also asking your partner what their needs are, so you know exactly what is acceptable and what is not.
Right. And yes, I mean, since we have spoke about that, I just want to understand, do you think there might be harmful boundaries as well? I mean, we might, unknowingly or knowingly, we might have had certain boundaries. Even now, you might have your own boundaries, and I also have my own boundaries. But do you think these boundary setting can also be toxic or harmful sometimes to the other person?
Definitely. A lot of times some boundaries are too strict. Now, as humans, we also have to be a little flexible when it comes to relationships, when it comes to the social setting. At the end of the day, we are social beings, and we can't be extremely rigid with our boundaries. Correct. So yes, a toxic boundary that I have generally seen people either setting, or probably when I was younger, I would also set a boundary like that, where you have a bad experience, and your boundary is that, okay, now I will never, let this happen to me with anybody. And then when actually somebody else who probably doesn't even know about this will come, there's like a stone in front of them, right? There's a wall in front of them. So I've set a boundary so strict based on my past experience, and that's not fair to this person. So I feel like you have to keep looking at what your boundaries are also based on the people that you're interacting with.
Right. And of course, toxic. I mean, there are certain toxic boundaries, and I have top of my head, I can't actually give an example as such. But there are there. I have heard stories, but right now I can't. I don't remember as such. But yes, it definitely has. But even with that harmful boundaries and stuff like that, I think people should take initiations in order to be flexible and take that trauma. So let's say someone has their trauma in the past, and currently they're afraid of we come here, we listen to this kind of line that I'm afraid of love, I'm afraid of getting heartbroken, or I'm afraid of certain situations because in the past certain things have happened to me, the trauma and stuff. So how exactly these people can come again back into their life, make sure that they're setting up healthy boundaries? So what exactly should they be doing in order to come out of those trauma and give people a chance again?
Yes, if experience and unpleasant to heal yourself, because it's almost like a wound and you cannot expect that it's going to heal in a day or two. So I feel like not just getting into any relationship just after having an unpleasant experience, I think it's very important to firstly heal yourself. Also, you'll realize a lot of times when it comes to relationships, it's of course traumatic experience can be somebody else behaving a certain way with this person, but also a lot of times what this person has also brought to the table. So instead of blaming that, okay, this person has done XYZ and now I can't ever love somebody, that is something that's of the past. So that's why healing is very important, because healing gives you that space to let go of the past and to learn what exactly are your needs, what are the mistakes that you made, because as humans we'll keep making mistakes. Maybe you let somebody violate a boundary, and maybe you haven't been bad to somebody, but you let them violate a boundary. So I feel like I'm just giving a personal example of that. This happens in therapy. I take clients through the process of healing, because once you know exactly what you want, that's the only time you can actually get into another space, give another person a chance. So it's like your glass is full with a lot of dirty water, so you have to purify it, and once that happens, you can actually let yourself experience a new thing. So I feel like healing and understanding yourself is very, very key to actually giving somebody else a chance. So I think that is how people can really manage if they've had an unpleasant or a traumatic experience.
Right. Well, as people, we might definitely feel sometimes lots of problem in order to set these boundaries. So do you have any tips and techniques to our listeners who can actually use these kind of techniques to actually set the boundaries? Because most of the times we are hesitant. So how exactly can are there any resource or techniques that you can share with us that will help someone struggling with setting boundaries?
Yes, I feel like boundary setting is such a space that we actually can do it by ourselves. Of course, if you feel like you're not able to do that, you can definitely seek a mental health professional's help. But just to set the base, because you need to also understand what are boundaries before you actually go into therapy and discuss this, right? Step number 1 is that what you can really do is sit with yourself and see, if you've done something, how does it make you feel? Because feelings can actually communicate whether a boundary is violated or not. So I feel like that is the first thing that we should do, that if you've had an experience that was unpleasant, reflect, go back and probably write that, okay, why didn't this sit well with me? That is exactly what somebody probably has violated your boundary. You can write it down. You can write that, okay, this is what I need to do the next time. I feel like your needs is what is going to communicate what your boundaries are. So you can actually make a list of things that somebody has done and you didn't like, And the next time you make sure that not just that person, but you don't allow anybody else to violate that boundary. And how you do that is by being extremely assertive. So assertive is a space where you're not being aggressive, you're not being passive, you're being assertive, meaning you're saying what you have to in a way that's stern, but it's not harsh. So I think this is like a good start for people to really set boundaries. And if you cannot, then of course you can definitely seek a mental health professional's help, or there are support groups also that actually allow for discussion. So anything that is comfortable to the person.
Right. Cool. So we'll discuss about the negative effects as of now, because let's also make sure people understand what would be the negative effects or impacts when you're not setting a healthy boundary. Let's call it a healthy boundary, because sometimes it can be toxic. So we'll be sticking to the healthy boundary part here. So what would actually happen to your mental health with regards to a negative impact, a negative impact of not setting a boundary?
Right. So I'll just give an example so it's more clear to people who are listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose if your boundary is, say for example, that it's a negative boundary, say for example, where you just cannot do without your partner, right? So your boundary should ideally, so the healthy boundary should be that you remove some time for yourself and you give them that space to remove, to actually be in their space. So both of you all actually give time to each other. Now that's a boundary. If you don't, actually abide by that and you violate it, you're constantly, say, messaging your partner, calling them, telling them why you're not replying, you're violating their boundary to be alone. You're also violating your boundary, which is of me time. Now, what are the harmful effects? Number one is that there is dependency, which is in a negative way. So now you cannot function without your partner. So just imagine the whole day you're thinking of your partner, what are they doing, where are they? This leads to overthinking, and overthinking really exhausts us. Right?
I think that's a different topic to discuss upon again. Overthinking. Yeah.
Yes. And actually that is exactly what not setting a boundary does. It eventually will lead you to overthinking. And as we all know, we all indulge in overthinking. So I think that is the most harmful thing that not setting boundaries does. It makes you overthink about a lot of things, and then you kind of regret. A lot of people come to me and say that I wish I would have said this. I wish I would have said this is actually a boundary, right? Which you didn't set and now you regret. So the second thing is also, first thing is overthinking, and second thing is there's a lot of regret. And we can't change the past. So it might as well change today and set a good boundary or healthy boundary. So we don't really live in regret. So we can really control our life to the best of our ability.
Right. Well, thanks, Nilofer. But let's before we go to another question, I'd want to understand if there are any example that you can give from your personal or professional life where you have had your set boundary and that has actually impacted in a positive way. So anything that you would want to share from your personal and professional life.
Yes, I actually have an example for my professional life. When I just started off, I was a young psychologist, I just started off, and it's very scary to set boundaries because you're like, okay, I have just started off, what will people think? How can I say a no, etc., etc. What happened is, however, I realized I'm always very, very in tune with my emotions. So if I do something and I feel like, okay, I'm feeling like an unpleasant emotion, say I'm feeling sad, I know, okay, this is not something that is sitting well with me. So what happened is that I have a very strict boundary that I do not work on Saturdays and Sundays, of course, but Saturday I do not work because I feel like I do enough from Monday to Friday and I need a little time for myself. Now, initially, it used to be very scary for me to really tell, say, my clients, other colleagues that, don't send me work or I cannot take sessions. But I did that. Despite it making me feel uncomfortable to communicate it, I did it. And I said, hey, I don't think I will be able to take this work up or I can't take this session. Saturday, Sunday is my time. And I will get back to you on Monday. And I would. And then I realized that people respected that because I was assertive. A lot of people would try to violate it. Clients, of course, are in need. And if they are in need, I would say that, okay, there's another psychologist, get in touch with them. Right? So I would help them, but I wouldn't take it. Right? And that has actually helped me till today. I feel like my mental space is good because I do not let others violate my boundaries and I don't violate my boundaries also. So that is an example that I could think of how it has really helped me in my professional life.
Right. Yeah, I completely understand. I think when you are at a pedestal, it's always hard, to say a no, or it's sometimes hard to actually communicate what you really want, which might be contrary of others' feelings. It sometimes might also offend or hurt. I mean, there are certain cases, but I think the best way to do is handle it properly. You just shouldn't be rude, or there are ways to actually handle people and understand what exactly you want in a way that they can understand as well. I think that is pretty much what boundaries are, making sure that you understand yourself first, and then help others understand what you want. I think that is what we can sum up with the podcast that we had today, and I think it was really a great discussion. But of course, we are not ending it here. We have certain things that we want our guests to tell us, or help us understand. So what are your hobbies? We'll just have a quick chat. What are your hobbies, other than of course you're a psychologist, but yes, apart from that, what are your hobbies? What do you do on a Saturday? Let's say you don't take work, so what do you do?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I would find it very difficult to really answer this question, that what are my hobbies? Now, of course, I'm in tune with that. What I absolutely love is dancing. So that is something I really enjoy. I realize that whenever I'm dancing, I'm not a professional dancer. I just dance for myself. So when I actually dance, it makes me feel so good listening to music. So I feel like music really has the power to change your mood for good and bad. So I feel like if we can actually use that to our benefit, it's lovely. So I feel like that is something I absolutely love doing. I'm also very interested in sports. So I try playing a sport, sometime if I have the time. So maybe like table tennis, badminton, etc. Because I feel like for me, it's very important to be physically active, because that has a direct impact on how I feel mentally. So yeah, I think these are basically my hobbies.
Right. And Nilofer, I mean, I'm really sorry, but I've got this, important question that I wanted to ask, but I almost forgot. But since you have mentioned music and dance, I just got reminded of this. You must understand, there's this controversy going on about the song that's been released recently, Besharam Brown, where Deepika Padukone is the lead actress, and SRK, Shah Rukh Khan, is the lead actor. When we talk about celebrities, I just wanted to ask that I don't understand what exactly their boundaries should be, or what are their boundaries, because people keep on, messing with that. I think when we talk about celebs, and, they're in the public eye, and there are lots of things, sometimes people actually cross the boundaries, and, there's lots of things that goes on. So what exactly do you think can a celebrity do in terms of setting up these boundaries? Because, their personal life is discussed on a public forum, their private life, their professional life is discussed, and now, things are taken in a way. I don't know why, but it has been at a point now where we can see that there's lots of intolerance towards creative or art fields as well. I think before arts and creative things, I think there was the only places where people can have their freedom, to express, to talk, to juggle upon, and to try new things. But I think there's lots of intolerance growing, and that at the end of the day, celebrities are also human beings. So what exactly a celebrity can do, in terms of setting up these boundaries, because that's been violated, and I can see it. We all can see it. I'm sure. So what exactly a celebrity can do in these kind of situations? How exactly can we educate actually people, to help them understand that this is normal. They are people and they have their boundaries, and you have no right to violate them in any way, be it professional or personal.
Yes, I feel like when it comes to celebrities, it's a very difficult space for them, and because they've chosen this life, sure, but again, they're humans, like you very rightly said, and they also have their needs. Like you spoke about the song and the intolerance. All of this is, of course, very rampant now. People will have a view. People will talk. I feel like it's very important, firstly, for celebrities as well as the people that are talking about this. It's okay, we are in a democracy. People will say, and you can do whatever you want. No, you can't really question people. You can't get offended with what people are saying. So when you asked me about what can celebrities do really to set boundaries, firstly, they cannot take offense for what somebody else is saying. You can definitely feel the emotion. feel bad, feel hurt, feel angry, frustrated, but you can't do anything. You can't really go and, shut them out or like take away their devices or whatever, right? Exactly. Or explain things to them, right? So I think firstly is to just accept. Secondly, maintain your own boundaries. So I see a lot of celebrities doing a really good job when it comes to their physical boundaries. They're very clear with it. So they will not let, fans, etc., come too close to them. They have bodyguards, of course, but very respectfully, they ask their bodyguards, can you please ask this person to move a little far? They are actually setting physical boundaries. Also, when they choose not to talk or to talk about something, again, they're actually setting boundaries, because it is a democracy. If you don't want to talk about it, you don't, and if you want to, you want to. So I feel like it's a give and take of the audience also to really look at what they can and they cannot say. I feel like we really need to be compassionate towards people, and I think once we set that in, I think we'll be kinder. And I literally advocate that just be kind. So either if you have something to say a nice thing, or just don't say anything, because you really don't know what people are going through, especially celebrities, because they have to kind of show a face that they're fine all the time. So I think, this is how they can probably manage boundaries.
Right. And as you have, as we all know, Deepika Padukone is herself a mental health advocate, and she is doing splendid work with her foundation as well. And I mean, our foundation is also very similar to hers, where we are trying to make sure that the awareness is there. Even the podcast, the podcast is also to make sure that people understand about the problems, about different aspects of mental health and how to take care of themselves as well. And as you have mentioned, it takes a lot to a celebrity to be a celebrity and take all these negative things and again put a face that they're okay. But I think just like Deepika Padukone, all the other celebrities must come out, just in case they are facing any kind of mental issues, because that's how people look up to them. People look up to them, and I think when these kind of people who we look up to, they come out and be very vocal about their problems, I think that is when the change would come, because that's when things get normalized, and I hope it happens. And I'm sure none of the offense is being taken. I mean, it must have been hurt. It must hurt her. I mean, it must have. Yeah, definitely. But I think she's strong enough, to take the kind of criticism. I don't know, the unnecessary criticism. I don't know. I might sound politically wrong here to many, but at the same time, I did feel that it was a very wrong aspect to do something like this. But I'm sure she's I don't know. I feel I generally have lots of respect to her, and I feel that she's one of the actors who has the guts, to come out of anything. With that said, well, yeah. So this was the question that I wanted to ask, and rightly said. I think celebs can take their respective steps as well. Be it show them in a negative aspect, but I think if it's working for you, working for your mental, then why not? That's the main thing that you might be looking at. Well, thanks Nilofer, thanks for that. So yes, what's the recent song that you have heard? Because we were talking about hobbies and I jumped out to the other topic. So what's the recent song that you have heard, or what's your favorite song in your playlist right now?
I actually have a song that I've been hearing for the longest. I don't know if it's a well-known song. It's called Ishq Mubarak, and it's from this movie called Tumbin 2. It's a really soothing and really nice. It has good music. I'm more towards the Bollywood and Indian music. So I think that is currently what I have been hearing. Also, Besharam Rang, that you mentioned, that is also something that's a good catchy tune. So I think that's also something I've been.
Right. And what has been, I mean, since we have just done the new year 2023, that's 14 days back, we have celebrated. So what was your party tune? What was your party anthem? To dance.
Actually,
to dance.
I think again, all like really old 90s songs. I am an absolute fan of all those 90s Bollywood songs where you can really dance and you have hook steps, etc. So some songs that may sound a little like, okay, this is too old for today, but I really enjoy. So I generally dance on songs like that. And of course, even today's times have good songs, but I am a 90s fan. So I think that is what the party was all about, dancing on all old songs.
Right. Well, that's it. Thanks, Nilofer. I think that would be our end of the podcast. And thanks for this episode. I think they have spoke about many things, and I hope our listeners do listen to us and understand. And even if they are struggling with setting up boundaries, we would be mentioning you on our official platforms. They can always, come and talk to you about their problems. And I wish lots of people are facing these kind of problems. They come to you or come to the foundation and heal themselves in whatever way possible. And thanks again, Nilofer. Thanks for having us. Thanks for being a part of us. It was great having you and talking to you.
Thank you so much. I think I had a great time, and the questions you asked and the conversation was so good. And I'm really hoping more people really benefit from what we spoke. Also, I learned a lot from you, so thank you.
Right. Well, thanks, Nilofer. And with that said, we'll be back with many such episodes. Watch out for us.